Welcome back everyone to another video. It looks like the information is actually heating up as time is running out for Microsoft to get this deal brought through. Now if you watched my video that I released yesterday, or if you're in the UK, the early hours today, then well, you will have seen that the FTC has put a restraining order on Microsoft in order to not to close. Now this is pretty much, was expected because Microsoft actually forced them and played them into it. Now you're probably going to be asking how they actually managed to do this. Well, the FTC probably wasn't going to put a restraining order, but with Microsoft constantly talking about closing before the deal is up, closing early, closing this, closing that, well, the FTC knew that the CMA basically weren't going to be able to stop them. So in essence, what they were trying to do here is to basically put a restraining order in to get an injunction, and by an injunction, that's a preliminary injunction. Again, we covered this topic slightly yesterday. Now, this obviously was to Microsoft's advantage, but the FTC really had no choice but to do this. If they didn't, well, Microsoft would have closed anyway. But by doing this, Microsoft has basically made it clear that if this deal, this hearing on the 22nd actually when it happens, and if the preliminary injunction doesn't go to the FTC's favor, and let's be realistic here, it can actually go in the favor of the FTC. The judge who, despite having thrown out 3 of the lawsuits aimed at Microsoft already, can actually still find in favor of the FTC if they have new information, which they do need to disclose, and they do have, I think, until the 20th or the 18th, something like that, to provide that information. But of course, until that point, we don't know if the FTC has any new info or any new evidence, so we can only go by what we have right now. But if they go to this trial on the 22nd, and we'll read this in just a sec, if they go to this trial on the 22nd with no new information, the preliminary injunction that they're requesting will more than likely basically be mute, I guess is the word I want to use. It will basically just die on its own. And even the fact that the FTC at that point, that they're suing Microsoft, that will also pretty much be dead in the water and thrown out. Why is this? Because this is pretty much their Hail Mary. They're banking everything on this. And Microsoft kind of wanted this, because if this doesn't go towards Microsoft's favor, then we could be looking at a litigation that's going to go on for a year, 2 years, 3 years, at which point Microsoft just won't even bother and will pull out, pay the $3 billion in damages, and call it a day. That's how important this 22nd, 23rd of June hearing is. But let's just read the post here. And it's basically taken from the Dev Discourse. And it's basically taken from the devdiscourse.com article. I'll have a link to that in the description below. Microsoft and Activision Blizzard asked a US judge on Wednesday to quickly schedule a case management conference in the Federal Trade Commission's legal bid to block the companies from completing a $69 billion tie-up. US District Judge Edward Davila on Tuesday set up a 22nd to 23rd evidentiary hearing and temporarily blocked the parties from completing the deal pending a future decision on whether to grant a preliminary injunction. Now, this is pretty much the most important part here. If this preliminary injunction fails, the FTC loses and it's game over for the FTC, and Microsoft at this point will just close the deal, regardless of what the CMA does or anything. At this point, the path will be open for them. They're going to close the deal to save that $3 billion, and then they will deal with the FTC as and when it's coming up over the next few weeks and months, because at that point, even the US will now cave in. The FTC will have to cave in, because at this point, if they can't even get a preliminary injunction to support their case, it's game over. Even the fact that they're suing will fail. It's that simple. This is of the essence, the companies wrote in a court filing. noting that Microsoft's agreement to acquire Activision has a termination date of July 18 and contains a $3 billion termination fee. Let there be no doubt, a preliminary injunction ruling is the only decision that matters under these challenging deadlines. And basically what they're saying here is, unless a preliminary injunction is granted to the FTC to block this deal from Microsoft being able to close it before that date, Microsoft will close it before the 18th of July. And if the FTC do fail to actually get this granted on the 22nd of June, it's a pretty much done deal of it being closed, and the FTC at this point will have zero legs to stand on. Now, of course, Microsoft are going to provide their evidence. I think it's on the 20th, and I think the FTC is going to provide their evidence a couple of days before, or it might be the reverse way round. But either way, all that information will be at the judge's inbox or wherever it's going to go. You know, it's going to be with the judge by the 20th. That is the deadline to get all the information into the court submitted with all new evidence to provide the legal counsels with enough time to actually look at the stuff over for a couple of days before they attend the hearing on the 22nd and 23rd. Now, it's also worth noting that the actual person doing this, Jacqueline, has, like I said already earlier, thrown out a number of cases, including the player's lawsuit, multiple times, and has also dismissed the FTC's attempt previously to block this deal already. So as of right now, this is looking very much in Microsoft's favor. But as we all know with these things, we also believe that the CMA was in the bag, and we also thought that the CMA was just a done deal after they gave up with PlayStation before they spent 3 weeks trying to find another reason, for whatever reason it is, to block this deal, and they came up with cloud gaming as a possible solution. Because clearly, for the 28 weeks, 29 weeks that they were trying to find a reason to block this deal, they realized that depending on Sony just wasn't going to be enough, and so they parted ways with Sony and decided that cloud gaming was going to be the thing. So clearly the CMA changed their mind and had always had a secret agenda to block this. That is pretty evident. But what it proves is that these deals are never set in stone, and things can always get a curveball. And the 22nd of June and the 23rd of June, where the CMC hearing is going to take place, these are pretty much the same ones that we had previously. Like they're the same structure, like the ones we've had in the UK with the CMA and Microsoft and Activision. This one here is going to be basically the same thing, but in the US. It's another CMC hearing. So hopefully it will be live and we can actually watch it. I doubt we'll be able to stream it because, well, at least in the UK, you're not legally allowed. And when someone tried, they actually took the whole thing off air. So please, people, don't be stupid like that. Don't do it. It'll just ruin the whole thing for everyone else, unless you do. But that aside, it'll be interesting to see the outcome. If on the 22nd or the 23rd, the news goes towards Microsoft and Microsoft win and there's no preliminary injunction, that's it. This is pretty much going to be closed before the July of 18th, and then the CMA and the UK player base will be basically trotting along without the Game Pass additions until that situation is resolved, because once that's gone through, at that point, it's a done deal. It's going to close, and Microsoft are going to kind of, in my opinion, fast-track the games into Game Pass and just show the rest of the world, hey, look, we've got all this stuff for our consumers, but the UK consumer base can't have any of this because us giving them games on a subscription basis is not competitive friendly. So the UK base, I'm sorry, but you're basically not going to have any of these free games to play on your subscription base that you're paying for, because apparently it's competitive. You can see what Microsoft is doing here. They're trying to make the CMA look as bad as humanly possible to build up pressure from the public, from the community, from politicians, to basically weigh in and basically tell the CMA to just push this through. And we've already seen analysts and experts now coming out, antitrust lawyers saying that the CMA is basically wrong and that the path that they're going down is, not a good one. So we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that discussion, and I will see you in the next one. Remain legend.